What's going on, guys? I'm Tyler, and to continue my 2020 series of TIFF Movie Reviews, I'm here to let you know that Nomadland is technically no perfect movie, but I don't really feel like saying that, and I'll get into why in a few seconds. But Nomadland, based on the best selling book, is a character study of a woman named Fern, played by Frances McDormand. She has lost absolutely everything in her life: her husband, her home, her job. Most of those things due to the Great Recession, because it takes place in 2012. And I know that for sure because there's one scene where McDormand walks past the movie theater that's playing The Avengers, and the fact that Chloé Zhao, the woman who directed this movie, is going to direct The Eternals next year, I don't really think that was a huge coincidence. But either way, this woman has very few options left, to the point where she decides to take the money that she has, renovates her van as her new home, and decides to drive cross country to live as a nomad. And in the process, she becomes friends with so many lovable new people. She discovers brand new places that she had never been to before, and also discovers a way of life that she never knew she really wanted, or at least didn't want to accept that that was the life she wanted to live. And I'm just gonna flat out say this: Nomadland might be the best movie that I've ever seen at the Toronto International Film Festival in the 3 years that I have been attending. It's easily the best movie I've seen so far this year. I can't say it's my favorite TIFF movie ever. That might still be Ford v Ferrari, but just on a technical level, there are only the tiniest things that I could really complain about with this movie, and I'm not even entirely sure if it's worth it. And it's unbelievably pathetic that in the 3 years that I've been doing this, the one time I can't go to the festival in person, I finally get to see the movie where it's just like, this is the best movie of the year, and I saw it here in Toronto. Because paying $25 for a movie to watch it at home isn't nearly as exciting as paying $25 to see it at the Princess of Wales Theatre or the Elgin. But regardless, I've seen it, and it is amazing. Chloé Zhao directed this movie so beautifully. Usually, whenever there are characters who live as nomads or by their lonesome, there's an easy way to portray the character's isolation without any dialogue whatsoever, and Zhao does exactly that, usually by starting off a scene in a wide shot where Frances McDormand is standing amongst all this wide open empty space. The editing is drawn out to make you feel the loneliness that this character is experiencing, and just when the audience has reached its peak, it immediately cuts to a close-up of McDormand, and just by judging her facial expressions and her body language, she's either about to just take in a deep breath and accept her situation, or just start bawling, letting out her grief and frustration just by herself, even though there are people around her in a given situation who she can grieve to, but she doesn't, because she either doesn't think it's any of their business and she doesn't want to make her problem someone else's, or she just doesn't think she deserves anyone to grieve to. And we'll get more into the character study later on, but that's just a great example of how beautiful the cinematography is in this movie. This might actually be best cinematography of the year as well. It's handheld camera work that feels very improvised and naturalistic, again, without being distracting, just like with Night of the Kings. And it's so much better here because even though it feels improvised, there's also this sense of composure, the way that characters and very important settings and little bits of information that are told visually through the camera work and the editing. There's always this sense that characters are perfectly in the center of the frame so that you can focus exactly on their emotions and the situation that they're in. But it still has that improv feel to it, the way that certain conversations start out with Fern giving a generic statement, and then the camera will pan over to the person she's talking to, they will give a response, and then it will pan immediately back to her so that we can see a reaction shot of her. The camera work has a 3-act structure while still feeling as if it just came on the fly. Now, I should make this clear. Nomadland is a movie very much like Call Me By Your Name, Florida Project, and Roma, where the movie doesn't have a 3-act structure. The second a scene ends, the next one will begin without much segue, and for some people, that might be an issue. But for me, it worked perfectly, and it fit the story so well, because even though the movie itself doesn't have a 3-act structure, each scene does. Like, the very first scene that Fern gets acquainted with nomad lifestyles, The beginning of the scene is her introducing herself, getting acquainted with the other people. The middle is her listening to the other people sitting around a campfire, telling their life stories, how it got to the nomad lifestyle that they're in now. And the scene ends on her just reacting to these stories, reflecting on their advice and wisdom. It's a great way of illustrating how life happens and changes very abruptly while still trying to find a daily routine to it all. And it's a testament to just how fantastic Chloé Zhao is as an editor as well, because she directed, wrote, and edited this movie, and she did all of those things nearly flawless. But all of that aside, all those things would amount to absolutely nothing if this character study didn't have a great actress to play this character. And I'm not kidding. This might actually be Frances McDormand's best performance. She was great in Fargo. She deserved the Oscar for it. She was great in Three Billboards. And she also deserved the Oscar for that, too. But what makes this movie and her performance so much more impressive than either of those two is that she has to portray so many different emotions, so many different thoughts and feelings that we really don't know about her as a character, because there's so much of her backstory that is left a mystery. Namely, the way she's deeply afraid of commitment. She's deeply afraid of bonding with other people, even though she's incredibly depressed by living life by herself. And the overall interpretation that I got as I was watching this movie, by not showing her home life before the beginning of this movie, just by judging Frances McDormand's facial expressions and body language as before, I got the sense that she's a woman who doesn't think she deserves to settle down with anyone, because the previous life that she had with her husband is seemingly irreplaceable, especially when she starts to regularly bump into another nomad played by David Strathairn, and she begins to not only experience his life as a nomad, but also gets to experience a second private life in this one home that he shares with the rest of his family, who he's trying to really get reacquainted with, because this nomad lifestyle has definitely hurt his relationship with his children in particular. And I gotta say, David Strathairn gives also a career best performance, because usually he either plays slimy business type scumbags like he did in Bourne Ultimatum, or these highly intellectual people who know everything but they still struggle regardless, just like his character in Good Night and Good Luck. But here he plays someone who is so regularly accustomed to working only part-time seasonal jobs, because due to the economic times and due to his age, those are the only jobs that he can get, something that McDormand's character can easily identify with. And when you see the two of them do very mundane things like go to a petting zoo or see this giant 80-foot dinosaur sculpture and just take a selfie, you enjoy watching those moments so much, because Fern is not only smiling, but you can genuinely get the sense that she is having such a good time, and hasn't had such a good time in God knows how long, because again, we don't see what her home life was like before then. We don't know how much she's been missing out on ever since she's hit rock bottom. But the more she spends time with all of these new friends, the more she decides if she can't get her own life together, the most she can do is, as opposed to not taking her own advice, she can at least pass on wisdom to certain people who desperately need it, because all the mentors in her life also have eternal struggles that they keep to themselves, struggles that she also tries to pass off her own 2 cents, where it's just as if, well, if I can't learn from my own mistakes, I can at least help someone do the exact same. If I had to complain about anything in this movie, is that as great as the cinematography is, there are some shots that don't feel as composed as they should be. And what I mean by that is that there are some actors who are at the very edge of the frame, and it feels a little distracting because you're supposed to be paying attention to them. Like Frances McDormand will have some shots where she looks like this, and it feels a touch too distracting and a little amateurish. I know that it has that non-narrative, almost documentary style that is better than Night of the Kings and is captured so beautifully, but sometimes it can be a little distracting. But there are only 2 or 3 scenes like that that really take you out of it. And whenever Zhao tries to foreshadow something that happens later on, it's not very subtle. You know for a fact that it's going to come back towards the end of the movie. But the good news is, when it does come back, it's emotionally effective. There's one person who says, you know, if I ever get to do this, I want other people to do that for me. And when people do that for her, that was the scene where I just could not hold in my emotions. I actually started crying. And you know what? I felt proud of that. I felt like I needed to throughout the entire movie because I was smiling so much just seeing this one woman who has lost everything and is just trying to get back her life while not even realizing that it wasn't even the life that she wanted. It felt so rewarding to see her discover herself as a person, and I don't really know what else to say other than Nomadland is easily my favorite movie of the year so far. Chloé Zhao's screenwriting, directing, and editing is top notch. Frances McDormand, I'm serious, has never been better. Neither has David Strathairn. And I also want to give a shout out to the three other main actors in this movie who are not actors. They are real life nomads basically playing themselves, especially Linda May, Charlene Swankie, and Bob Wells. Really good job. I kind of knew Bob Wells was already not really an actor because when I looked up Nomadland on YouTube, his channel came up, and you actually see his channel near the beginning of the movie before Fern decides to become a nomad. I'm getting really distracted on here, but regardless, writing, directing, editing, perfect. The performances, also perfect. I can't believe I'm saying all this stuff. The beautiful landscapes of the United States look absolutely gorgeous. They almost look like a Terrence Malick movie, the way they have those Emmanuel Lubezki tracking shots where it starts off with a character and then pans over to the scenery, but it still feels earned because Fern is discovering what type of areas she wants to live in. She's discovering how much more peaceful and liberating it is to live in the outdoors as opposed to living in this boxed-in community. There's just so much I can go on and on about with talking about this movie to the point where I'm absolutely serious. I haven't done this in 3 years, I think. I'm going to give Nomadland a 5 out of 5. It doesn't come out till December, I think, but when it comes out in theaters, see it. It is absolutely worth it. Guys, thank you so much for watching. If you are following the festival and have seen Nomadland, let me know in the comments below what you thought of it. If you're following other TIFF movie reviews, be sure to let me know what your favorite TIFF movie of the year so far is. Be sure to stay tuned for more reviews of TIFF. I've got 4 more. I've got One Night in Miami, Shadow in the Cloud, Falling, and Good Joe Bell. So look forward to those, and be sure to like and subscribe. Take care.